Hello, watching PC Jack. Today, we're taking a look at the Ryzen 3 3200G. This is a 4-core full-thread APU with a base clock of 3.6 GHz and a boost clock of 4 GHz, which was released back in July 2019 as part of the launch of the Ryzen 3000 series of Zen 2 processors. Back when this was released, this APU received a lot of praise due to its low cost, reasonable performance with its integrated Vega 8 graphics, and appeal to budget PC gamers. Now, since its release, we have seen some new options from AMD with better performing integrated graphics like the 5600G and the 5700G. However, today I wanted to revisit this now 4-year-old APU to see just how well it holds up in 2023. For today's testing, I've taken a look at a range of titles that the 3200G both performs pretty well in, as well as some titles that are going to push this little APU to its absolute limit. And as you will see, in some games that's very evident, but it's still interesting to take a look at nonetheless. All tests have been run at 1280 by 720p with a goal of at least 30 to 60 FPS, which we do reach in certain titles or even exceed, so let's begin. Starting with CSGO, this is probably the easiest title to run out of today's titles. For our settings, we've gone with high settings across the board, and the game has very little issue in maintaining an average FPS well over 100, which makes this tile a great match for our 3200G. Our 1% and 0.1% lows are also pretty favourable, but overall, gameplay is smooth enough and I could easily play this game with these current settings and level of performance. However, what if we look at our toughest title to run in today's video, which ultimately proved to be too much for our Vega 8 graphics to handle. Moving on to a title I've been having an amazing time playing recently, just not on this system. Returnal is the latest PlayStation port which, despite us lowering all our settings as low as they can go, in addition to destroying our image quality by using FSR performance, the game just looks and runs awfully. Not only was our performance dreadful, but I even encountered a few hard crashes, and even a straight up black screen which forced me to reboot the system. So, based on this, I'd really struggle to recommend the 3200G in this title. But I wanted to get that one out of the way before we move on to some titles that actually performed somewhat reasonably, one of which being Stray. I have to say that I was mildly impressed with how well this game ran on our 3200G system, and even opting for medium settings for a bit of extra eye candy didn't drastically affect our performance, with an average pretty near 60 FPS, which still felt smooth enough to make for an enjoyable experience. Overall, a pretty good result for a title that looks as good as it does, and also seems to allow our 3200G to maintain a reasonable level of both visuals and performance. Next, let's take a look at Dead Space Remake. Now, despite being able to get the game to run and maintain an average just over 30 FPS, I honestly wouldn't recommend playing this title on the 3200G. Not only has FSR performance ruined our image quality, but unfortunately, you will see some noticeable stutters affecting not only our percentile lows, but also the gameplay experience where jump scares are affected and ruin the experience. Since the original Dead Space still holds up to this day and will almost definitely run miles better with integrated graphics, I'd honestly just recommend playing that version instead and saving the remake for a time when you have a beefier system to run it. However, there was one title that really took me by surprise, which was Red Dead Redemption 2. Opting for the low preset but using FSR balanced, visuals aren't quite what you'd like to see from such a visually impressive title, but given the limitations of our integrated graphics, this is reasonable given how demanding this title is to run. I rode around for a while and then caused some mayhem in Valentine and surprisingly maintained a modest average of 31 FPS, with percentile lows that weren't too noticeable in all honesty. If this is your only option in order to play this title, you're going to miss out on some incredible graphics, but if pushed, it's still an enjoyable experience in my opinion. An even more visually striking game though would be Cyberpunk 2077. Well, maybe not the best way to describe the game with these settings. Running with the low preset makes this game somewhat of an isolated experience due to the lower crowd density. To be fair, the 3200G does manage an average of 38 FPS, but our percentile lows do let us down and become pretty noticeable. Much like our other titles, we could drop down to FSR performance, but this will negatively impact visuals even further, so I still felt balance would suffice for the least amount of compromise in this title. Moving on to our last game today though, we have Fortnite. I first opted for the game's performance mode, which sits between the two DX11 and DX12 APIs, which is designed for lower hardware such as our 3200G. And this did actually allow me to run the game at 1080p, with really decent FPS, but I actually can't see anything on the screen. That might be another player, but I'm not too sure. So while performance is great, which is ideal for a competitive shooter such as this, it's hard to recommend with such a huge visual degradation. So instead I opted for DX11 with low settings and using epic upscaling. This improved our visuals pretty well, but of course our performance is worse. But honestly, I didn't have too much of an issue running at this frame rate. Now, while our average was actually pretty decent, I did notice however that the game did struggle greatly with our percentile lows. However, I did get some kills during testing, so this does make me think if you are running with a 3200G, then you shouldn't have too much of a bad time with this title. So that's all our games for today's testing. I found it really interesting revisiting the 3200G. Some games have surprised me, but of course, we have seen some of the limitations of this APU, most likely due to our Vega 8 graphics as well as having only 4 threads. Nonetheless, this is still a great APU in the right situations. I honestly still think this APU is still a great option for getting into esports titles such as CSGO or Fortnite. Are you going to be getting a competitive edge with every frame? No, but is the experience enjoyable? I'd say so. However, if you were looking to buy a 3200G as an entry point into PC gaming due to its integrated graphics, unless buying used, I'd recommend taking a look at the Ryzen 5 5600G, which is actually retailing for around £129 brand new. This is a pretty decent deal for a better performing APU, but just thought I'd throw that one out there. Overall though, I've had fun revisiting the 3200G, and even 4 years later after launch, I can still say this is a versatile and affordable option even in 2023. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, then please feel free to like and subscribe for more videos on the way soon. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PCJack94. If you'd like to support the channel even further though, then please consider becoming a channel member for some exclusive perks and benefits while helping to fund everything into the channel for you guys. You'll find links to all those in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.